tonight. I appreciate it. We have a great session tonight. We have Dr. Victor Ramsey. He is the absolute best. He is in the New York City DOE. He's in the Office of School Wellness Programs. He's a professor at York College, and he's also on the New York State AHPERD Board of Directors, on top of presenting at multiple conferences and workshops throughout. Today's session is going to be on culturally responsive teaching and learning in HPE. And before I swing it over to Victor, I just want to remind you all of why to become a New York State AHPERD member. Our organization has a great group of elite professionals that you are one day going to be a part of. They are intensely dedicated to their own profession excellence. And as I expect all of you here tonight to one day be a part of, if you are not, our professional development. That's one of our big member benefits. We also have an insurance policy that it's up to $1 million of liability. God forbid something goes wrong when you're teaching out in the field.
Anthony, you're cutting in and out.
Have that on your back. Advocacy for your program. Can you still hear me?
You're cutting in and out.
Okay. Any better? Good now?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So also we have grants, scholarships. So for instance, we have the JB Nash Award that's honored every single year at our annual conference, and then also Departmental Major of the Year Awards that is also honored at our annual conference. And obviously leadership opportunities, which is what me and Jared hold. And then we also have some student delegates on tonight. That's a new position that we just implemented. And hopefully if you're looking to get more involved, then we'll reach out to you and you can definitely get a chance to take on that position. The membership is only $40 a year if you're an undergraduate student member. If you're a graduate student member, it's $50. It goes a long way professional development wise, and it puts you in the best place when you're going out into the field and applying for jobs. So without further ado, I'm going to swing it over to Victor and I'm going to let him take it away.
Yes, thank you and welcome. And I just want to remind everybody that I try everything I can to get our students over at York College to be professionally involved in the benefits of being professionally affiliated with some organizations. So I thank you for throwing that in there. I just want to make a mention also that I all this time have been calling Mr. Sibeli. And that is interesting because as we talk about cultural responsiveness, this is something that's key when we're talking about enunciation or pronunciation of your students' names. Very important that we do that, that we pay attention to that. And if we don't know, there's nothing wrong with asking. But I did hear Professor Manson said Skibeli. So now I'm going to make certain that I am culturally responsive when I'm speaking to Mr. Anthony. So thank you again for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here. I'm always excited to speak to future professionals. This is what I do. I enjoy it. I mentor students and I something that I newly inducted teachers, and I'm just happy to be here. So I want to get things started and rolling right away so I keep you engaged. So here's the outline for our presentation. Welcome and introductions. I think we did that, some informal introductions. Too many of us to have each person introduce themselves, but as we go along, if you have to share or ask a question, feel free to say your name and what school you're in. And if you feel like sharing something unique about yourself, that's great too. And also where if you're ready to graduate, because I am one of the people in New York City that recruits. So if you're ready to graduate and get a job, I know Christian's been staring at me because he knows I'm trying to get him over here in the city. We have a lot of openings over here, people. So you're in the right place. And by the way, you are in the right presentation today because you are getting something that I think many current teachers never had and need. And that's the reason why there are certain issues that are that's happening in their settings, in their teaching environment. So I want to get things rolling. So again, the purpose of the presentation, we talk about the learning objectives. I have a piece on reflection. I talk about that. I'll address culturally responsive teaching learning, which I will infuse some EDI information in there. I have a very informative video that I will show you. And then I have a few suggested strategies for creating a culture responsive health and physical education setting. Again, suggested strategies. You are going to be the champions who are going to take this on to the next level, because you are the future of our profession. And I am here with you. We are here with you to support you. We're going to do a brief community activity. I hope that our technology and our tech guru, Mr. Scabelli, and we'll be able to help us out, making sure that goes flawless. And then lastly, we'll do a takeaways. In other words, you'll share one thing that you took away from today's presentation. And then lastly, of course, share a few resources. Okay. So before I begin, I'm going to just go, I just want to take a step back. And please come off mute, because I don't want to make this a one-way street. This have to be a two-way street, three-way street, 25 people street, you know, whatever it is you want to call it, because I want everybody involved here. So please feel free to come off mute. Unless you know me, don't say anything. If just by looking at me and maybe hearing me and just being the way I look or sound, where would you think I'm from? What languages do you think I speak? Or language other than English do you think I speak? Feel free to come off mute real quickly. Anyone?
Spanish.
Spanish. Okay. I do speak Spanish.
Dominican Republic.
Dominican Republic. What made you say that? What made you say that?
Your accent.
Oh, I have an accent. Okay. Okay. That's a great observation you made. When I'm presenting to teachers in New York City, I often say to them that, and thank you, Jamie. Jamie, is that Jamie, my friend? And Wheeler is great, because my colleague name is Wheeler, so I got that right. So don't worry about me messing up your name. But Jamie, thank you very much. But Jamie made and again, we didn't rehearse this, but he was right on point in terms of some of the things that we say, i.e., because of your accent. Just for the record, we all have an accent. So if I came from Brooklyn and someone is in Manhattan or the Bronx, we have a different accent, believe it or not. So New York, the South, another country, what have you, right? So that's one of the things that we as educators and being culturally responsive need to pay attention as well. So I appreciate you saying that. And again, I was born and raised in Panama. I speak Spanish. So you are close, my good man, close. So I do speak Spanish. I serve in the United States Army. So I'm also a veteran of the United States. I went to Germany, sprechen Sie Deutsch, and I tried to incorporate all different languages in my classes when I taught in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And that is it was in the middle school. So I will use that students from all over. So I had a student say from Korea. So I would say konnichiwa, or I would say, so I had an Arab students, I would say, I would greet them in their native tongue. I would say, you know, I would greet them, or I would say, try to get them to even speak English. I will translate for them in real time. So the point is, you always have to be culturally astute in knowing these things. And if you don't know, go back to the drawing board. So again, the purpose of this presentation is to discuss and share with future health and physical education professionals, and just an overview of CRT, or culturally responsible teaching and learning in physical education, including looking at establishing and doing some advocacy for equity, diversity, and inclusiveness. So we additionally will include some strategies for how to create this setting. And what we'll do is ask for some suggestions. I'll share with some suggestions of some of the things that you can do, and feel free to come off and ask any question as I proceed, okay? So the learning objectives are at the end of this presentation. Hopefully you'll get a better understanding of culturally responsive teaching and learning. We're able to analyze EDI and the importance of incorporating this when we are planning in our health and physical education for our physical education settings. And lastly, we'll just share some takeaways from this session, things that you can perhaps, if you're doing student teaching, or again, if you're graduating soon, be able to incorporate or at least put on the forefront of your planning. So I'd like to share this, this reflection piece that I got when I was in graduate school at Manhattan College. There was a professor, Sister Mary, because it's the LaSalle Brothers Institution. And I was doing a program with amazing Professor Dr. Merriman, who to this day, we're very good friends. And there was one of the professors there who brought this book to us, Teacher and Child, by Hayam Jino. And this book had some passages in there in which we were analyzing them every week. And I guess Sister Mary was so impressed with the fact that I was so happy to use some of the content of these books. And I asked her, where can I get this book? She says, oh, no, it's no longer in print. Well, to my surprise, the following week, Sister Mary came back with a copy of this book and called me after class and said, Victor, I found a second copy and I want you to have this. And folks, I cherish this book, and this book has transformed the life of many teachers who were struggling. So allow me to read this to you loudly here. So I am the decisive element in the classroom. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated and a child humanized or dehumanized. I urge you folks, if you get a chance to pick up a copy of this book, and I trust me, I know you will find it extremely helpful. And let me say this to everyone here. Note that I asked everyone if you're ready to graduate or if you graduated, and I was teasing my friend Christian here and I said, come to New York City. Folks, you never know where you may land. You may land in a school that the students don't look like you or from the same neighborhood you're from, and you never know. So this is a great opportunity for you to bank on this information, take it to that next level, and make yourself a well-rounded teacher so that they can pick you and drop you at wherever you are, and you can make a difference in the life of children. And I promise you, if you do that, you'll be in good hands. You'll be all right. So we hear cultural responsive teaching and learning, and we oftentimes wonder, like, what does it mean? So I'm going to just give you a quick synopsis of what Zaretta Hammond, one of the most prominent culturally responsive experts here, where she shared that the culture responsive defines the culture as the way our brains make the sense of the world. Culture includes observable differences such as dress, language, food, music, etc. But culture also includes non-observable qualities. You'll see that in the video later. Non-observable qualities that form the unspoken or the unconscious rules people follow, such as body language, concept of time, attitudes towards elders, and problem solving, just to name a few. So essentially what she's saying is that it's not something that you can just come in and it's going to happen overnight. You have to build this, and we'll talk about some of those strategies that we'll use later. In fact, people oftentimes confuse culture responsive learning or teaching also with race. They think when they hear the word cultural, it applies to race. No, my friends, it applies to a gamut of things that we will find in our teaching environment. So I want you to pay attention to that as we move forward. So let's talk a bit about EDI and how this can be is a serious something to consider always in your teaching when planning and teaching. So when we hear the word equity, essentially what it means is creating fair access, opportunities, and advancement for different people. In other words, We want to have a fair and equal opportunity for everyone. Every child deserves the same. You know, I can't share with you so many stories I've heard some teachers say things that were perhaps in some instances not purposefully said but not knowing. They would say things that were either disrespectful because they didn't know the differences in terms of the culture of the student, where the background, what languages, all these different things. They made assumptions about students. So we always have to incorporate, we always have to talk about equity in our learning environment. So it's creating, again, fairness and opportunity. You might hear the word social justice applied to it somehow, because it's all about creating that environment where everyone, again, is on the same playing field, having opportunities that everyone should have. So if you have a funding for a certain school district, certain school community, we in New York City do everything we can to make certain that we spread the love, that we have opportunities that go across the board based on the needs of this community, of a given community, and make certain that that is done fairly. When you hear the word diversity, is then having an understanding, an acceptance, and a value and differences among people. People come with all types of wonderful things that we need as a people and humans just to share with one another. We tend to sometimes close our mind. I do an activity with my college students in which at the end, I share a bag with different items. And one of the items is one of those googly eyes. And then I asked them, so what do you think would be the purpose of that eye? That eye is what it symbolizes for you to have an open mind to learning new things. And therefore, having understanding and accepting that and valuing the differences in your teaching setting is something that I think is great to embrace. And inclusion, then now that's giving everybody or individuals a sense of belonging, meaning that you are valuing everyone in that setting. So you can have equity, you can have diversity, but are you including everyone? So that's giving now individuals a sense of belonging, part of that community that you have set forth in your setting. So that's something that I want you to understand as you plan to deliver your health and physical education lessons, that you acknowledge and keep at the forefront of your planning sessions anything related and everything related to equity. Is your lesson, is the goal of your lesson includes everyone? Can you do you see the diversity within the group that you're teaching? Do you feel that the opportunity that every kid in your teaching setting has? I just had a conversation with a teacher this morning who shared with me that many of his students in Bed-Stuy have never been to a baseball game. Who would think that? With two of the best teams in the country, the Yankees, and some people will argue the Yankees or the Mets, they never been to a baseball game. And he said, I want to make sure that my students have access. My good friend, Paul Forbes, who was one of the keynotes, him and I went on many walks in the South Bronx where we see that teachers made these assumptions that because the student came from a certain community, they should not have opportunities to learn a different sport or a different activity that may be not within their allowed to have that resources or have that opportunity to be involved in that. So these are things that we need to really, really pay close attention whenever we're planning to deliver instruction in health and physical education. So here's some strategies I like to just talk to you briefly about, and I'll go over it, each one of these. So one of the biggest things I ask teachers to do, and I'm asking every single one of you as you move forward in your career, reflect. Reflect on a daily basis. Reflect so that you can avoid personal biases, stereotypes, assumptions about your population. Reflecting is something that helps you sort of like check yourself. You know, like, did I say this right? Was I fair with this group? Did I address the needs of my students? And then while you're reflecting, ask yourself, would I want to be in my own class? Would I want to be in my own class? Or would I want someone in my family, someone close to me that I care for in my class, and I'm being their teacher? Think about this as you reflect. These are just something that I always, even to this day, every single time, reflect. Did I say it right? Did I make a mistake? Did I have a misstep? Can I make this better? And I will always remember planning. There's always room for improvement. So don't get bent out of shape or upset because, oh my goodness, this blessing didn't come out the way it's supposed to be. So just keep that in mind. Build and foster trust with your students. Listen, folks, we hear a lot about classroom management, and I know for a fact there's all types of topics on classroom management and some of the strategies people use. Very difficult to teach, very difficult to even adapt. But guess what? If you build and foster the trust with your students, where they see that you care for them, and remember that Hayam Gino quote that I read at the beginning. If you let them see this, let them believe that what you're doing is to their benefit, and you let them see this, folks, it's going to be the best time of your life, just to be around your students and then building that trust with them. Intentionally connect with students. Now, let me explain what I mean by being intentional in that regard. Oftentimes, teachers hear students, but they don't listen to students. That's two separate skills. I don't know, maybe I hope someone, medical doctor in the house, help me out with this one. But there's hearing, as in Charlie Brown, you remember, wah, 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 words come out of people's mouth, but they're not, are you listening keenly to what students say? Very, very important to pay attention, to connect with your students on that level. Let them know that you're there for them and you're there with them. So when you connect with students, you begin to, again, previous bullet, build and foster the trust with them. Then, when you build relationships with your students, again, and their families, that's key right there. Because you can use families, and let's put this in perspective, because a lot of people tend to make assumptions, and I'm gonna tell you a misstep that a colleague of mine had when I did my school administration degree in Brooklyn. The lady said, we were talking about students sitting in on the cafeteria tables, like where people eat, on the tables, not actual bench, but the table. And we were troubleshooting how will we address that. And that may happen if you don't have a gymnasium, you may have to be in the cafeteria, right? And you put the benches to the side or what have you. But then if someone is, the tables are out, some students may want to sit on the table. So we were kind of debating that back and forth. And one lady said, I'll go up to the student and say, don't your mother or father teach you manners, not to sit on the table? So my pushback immediately when they asked for feedback was, how do you know the student has a mother and a father? So you have to be careful with how you address that. You have to, immediately she said, oh, but yeah, everybody don't have a mother and a father, and everybody don't have the nucleus of what we may consider a family. So you have to be careful when you use certain language or certain rhetoric with students, because they will take this, and again, that will do the breakdown of the trust, the breakdown of the connection that you made, the breakdown of the relationship you're trying to build with them. You have to be very, very careful. So building the relationships with your students and maintaining it, and then extending that to the home, is the most beautiful thing. This is something I observed, ironically, with amazing teacher here in Brooklyn, Mr. Z, where I go and I can see I just hear how when he's talking to students, they will say, oh yeah, but my mom was gonna come to the early morning fitness or the afternoon rec. And I'm hearing like, wow, this guy's really doing this. So this again is him. It took years, it took a while to build that trust, that relationship, to build that culturally responsive learning environment. And that's what we're talking about. You have to embrace this. You have to going back again to the drawing board and make things better each and every day by reflecting. Collaborate with the school community. I cannot begin to tell you how important this is, folks. Do not sit in a silo, and no matter what school you go to, You want to be part of every community. You want to be part of every committee. There's nothing wrong with volunteering. By the way, you get to learn other things, like you get to learn the work behind the work, how certain things work on a political level, meaning as in the school level, that you may not know otherwise. This in turn will help you to make informed decisions that can help, i.e., for example, if you're writing a grant and you try to create an environment where you want to bring equity, diversity, inclusiveness in your gymnasium, that grant may require you to share what type of things do you see in your school environment, in the entire school community, where there will be a need for you having this funding. Well, because you're part of a committee or committees and you are involved with your colleagues and you go around this whole school and you do what you do, guess what? This is your way of, again, collaborating. And when you ask your colleagues, hey, what's happening in your room? Well, we're talking about the human heart, and we're talking about building, we talk about the human heart, and here you are now in your gymnasium, say, you know, by the way, boys and girls, or scholars or superstars, you want to use a word, that's another piece I have to remind myself of. Again, you could, instead of saying boys and girls, just say, ask the students to come up with a name. It could be the school's mascot, or it could be a name that you have each class or the entire school, i.e. scholars or champions or superstars or shining star, what have you. Okay, scholars, okay, champions. And you could ask them, again, remember what Miss Jones or Mr. Schiavelli's doing in science, the human heart. Well, here's an example of how you can make your heart pump, see, and then you tying in what they're doing. And guess what? Once teacher hear you doing these things, anytime you need collaboration among your colleagues, all stakeholders want to be part of I made my environment a sight to see and the envy of other schools, because I wanted everybody in my gymnasium. When you came down there, everybody had a good time. And I invited my colleagues in there. And I tell you, it was a fun experience I had in that middle school. So again, collaborating with the rest of the school community. Here's the last bullet here. And again, remember, these are only suggested strategies, a lot more. And as I get them, I will be happy to share them with Mr. Schiavelli so he can then, disperse them with among your members. And that's something that I'm here available for you. You can reach out to me at any time and ask for that too. Read. Note, I put that in caps, right? Read and stay abreast with pertinent research. Dr. Manson can attest to the fact that if you apply research to practice, your practice will be better. You would make a difference. Read and stay abreast with pertinent research. And I have books as well, but I'm just saying pertinent research. We just did a piece, podcast, A to Z Health and Phys Ed, where we looked at articles and research and how to apply that to practice. And I can't tell you, it was, something to experience in terms of hearing what the benefits of applying research to practice. Staying abreast and make it part of your consistent professional learning opportunity is something that I will strongly encourage you to do. This document, Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education Framework, I have the link for you. I'm going to drop it when you go into the communities for that activity. But I want you to take a look at this. And this framework, basically, as it states here, helps educators create student-centered learning environment that affirm racial, linguistic, and cultural identities, prepare students for rigor, no matter where, rigor across the board, right? That's equity, huh? And independent learning, develop abilities to connect across lines of difference. What is that? Diversity, see that? And then it goes, elevate historical marginalized voices and empower your students as agents of social change. Again, this speaks directly to EDI as well. And if you notice in each one of these, obviously the tree trunk is the students, And it goes off into community members, district leaders, school leaders, teachers, higher education faculty, student and families. And you note that here says welcoming and affirming environment. Here it is. This top one to our left here. Collective responsibility. That is that school piece I was telling you about, and communities. Close relationships with students and their families. We spoke about that. Social emotional learning, something you always hear about and should be embracing. And then materials that represent and affirm student identities. Again, the differences that you will have in your teaching, health and physical education learning environments. Again, over here, down here, we have inclusive curriculum and assessment. Again, when planning, making certain that resources written and developed by racially, cultural, and linguistic diverse perspectives. So you want to be able to address, know your students, know where they're from, learn about them. And it's nothing wrong. Once again, my friends, there's nothing wrong with asking, because education is a quest from the time you're born until. So you always, if you don't know, you ask. I cannot begin to tell you, I go to this health food store, and the gentleman that owns the store, which he opened the store 10 years ago, is of Hasidic Jewish faith. And I'm telling you, man, when holidays come around and he's telling me about the various holidays, I ask him, I said, how do I, present, how do I greet? How do I say, have a great holiday? Is it, what's this about? Purim, what is that about? Explain this. And they go into telling me this, and guess what? It's making me a more rounded, well-rounded person, because then I will know how to act. Should I have a student? Again, I do have students that come from, that are Hasidim, right? And have a different faith than I have. And I'm able to relate to them. And they sometimes they're shocked, like, how did you know this? And I said, well, I just asked. And again, if you don't know, you ask. And that's how you grow and you learn. High expectations and rigorous instruction. Once again, you want to make certain that you have that rigor across the board. And then lastly, ongoing professional learning and support. You're doing that right now. Diversity, equity, and inclusion training. You're doing some of this right now. Any opportunity you get to embrace EDI in any form of fashion, make certain that you jump on that, because you want to always keep your craft going, keep things fresh. So if there's any opportunity for you to do something different, something unique, you already have, you're well equipped. And I'm telling you again, every single person in this group that is a future professional, and some of you were current or newly inducted too, but future professional, you're in a great space right now, because you are getting what you might have had already and needed a little booster, or some of the information might be fresh to you, but nonetheless, it's a benefit for you. So I'm going to pause just for a bit before I do what I have to do to ask, are there any questions? Feel free, of any type, any strategy, anything that you might have came across during your student teaching. You say, you know what, XYZ came in, what would you do in a situation like this? Or what suggestions do you have? I'll pause right now. And feel free to come off, or Mr. Scabelli, if you don't mind feeling the chat. If there's a question coming in the chat, it's fine as well. You could type it in the chat, folks, or come off mute.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to type in the chat, I can read it out. But I'll start off. Obviously, with cultural responsiveness, you think in terms of race a lot. And I never really thought about the religious aspects as well, because being Roman Catholic, most of the time you're just kind of saying Merry Christmas, stuff like that. And depending on what district I'm going to be in, obviously that might not be applicable. Right. So now I have to be more cognizant of that and say, for instance, happy holidays, if they even do have a holiday that is going to occur.
Right. The fact that you are acknowledging a holiday of any sort. And again, Mr. Scabelli, you're spot on, man. You know yourself, right? You know who you are, you know your background, but nonetheless, if you're in a community or you're in a setting where there might be students who are Muslim, and you don't know what they can do or cannot do. For example, for years, this is serious, for years, I had a young lady, African-American, who faith was that of a Israelite. and that's a religion. And she could not wear pants. She could not wear shorts. And she would wear the long skirt. And didn't know. I said, and she was so shy that she didn't know how to express to me, I cannot wear pants and or shorts. It wasn't until I met her brothers, and thank goodness that the brothers were just so nice. The whole family was just nice. The mother happens to be from Panama, just coincidentally, right? And I was able to ask her, I said, please enlighten me. And, to this day, folks, as I reflect, remember I told you, reflect. As I reflect, I went back to her and I said, her name was Sarah. Never forgot. I said, Sarah, I want you to please forgive me for not knowing better. And I have to be honest with you, I didn't know. And I thank your brothers for sharing this with me because I didn't know you were not allowed based on your faith. So again, innocently, right? You didn't know, you ask. So that's a great point that you're making, Mrs. Cabelli. Thank you. Anyone else, please? In the chat, or you could come off mute. Feel free, please.
I'll kind of build off that. I find it kind of interesting, kind of how he said the religion route, but also like the gender route.
Yes.
Very, very like nowadays, got to be cognizant, like he said, of using boys and girls or
absolutely.
Guys.
I caught myself when I said boys and girls, and I said, oops. I say, you see, I caught myself. Scholars, superstars, or a name like that. Continue, Jared. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So no, yeah, that's kind of something I do a lot. I say guys a lot.
Yes.
So I started trying to use athletes, or like you said, champions, something more along those lines, trying to target the physical class.
Yep. Absolutely. Great point. Yes. And again, man, I got to brag about it. You're in the right space, man. Here it is. You're prepared. When you're going into that workforce now, you're going to be equipped. You will know these are missteps I'm going to avoid. And I'm going to remember what Vic Ramsey said, if I don't know, I ask, or I should reflect and say, did I approach this situation right? Did I say this right? And I cannot begin to say that I'm so happy that you did mention that also. Again, gender identity, very, very important these days. You have to be extremely, and I don't like to use the word tolerance because I don't think the word tolerance sends a powerful message. I think the word respect should be a lot more the one that we should be using, more affirmative. Respect, because tolerate, tolerate, but respect differences. That's something that your students will embrace, and you will be able to grow as a person, generally speaking, and the entire school community will pick up on that, including your administrators. Absolutely. Any other questions? And throw a strategy out there or something you need to know, and I'll be happy to share anyone. All right. Going once, going twice.
Dr. Ramsey, how are you, my friend?
Oh, hey, my man, what's going on? Oh,
How
my
are you?
goodness, my brother. This is my brother from another. What you always say? My Pan-American.
You and I say too many things that we may not want to say right now. Yes.
You're a brother from another mother.
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
My Pan-American brother, all
That's
sorts
it,
of fun
man.
things. Yes.
That's it, man. Yes, sir.
Dr. Ramsey and I are old souls, old connected souls.
Yes.
And I just want to reiterate the point he just made. It's a conversation him and I have had.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not, one thing I've learned from Dr. Ramsey is about judgment free. Okay. This is not about judgment. And I do think the word tolerance is problematic for various reasons, which I echo when it comes to Dr. Ramsey, but does it come from a good place? I'm always going to assume yes, it comes from a good place. But if we look at the etymology of the word tolerance, it means exactly what Dr. Ramsey said. I'm not so sure, but you know what? I'm just going to say, okay.
Do it, right.
Okay. So tolerance is not what we want. We want celebration. We want embrace. We want to cultivate, welcome, support. Those are the words that we want to move towards. Now, again, tolerance was once, celebrated it as well. But I think we've moved past that now. I think
Yes.
it's beyond tolerance. It's not about tolerance anymore.
That's right.
We
That's right.
welcome difference.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you
course,
for
my friend.
tag teaming that one. Yes.
Good to see
I'm
you.
gonna plug in this brief video. It's only 4 minutes long, and we're doing, the timing is perfect for the other things that I'll be sharing. So bear with me here, okay? All right, and just give me a thumbs up if you could see my screen. You see the screen? Beautiful. All right, here we go.
I think people, when they use the term culturally responsive or culturally relevant pedagogy, forget that the base of the word is culture. So culture has to do with worldviews, beliefs, language. It has to do with values.
Culture, to me, at its essence, are the things that, those filters that help us as human beings make sense out of the most ordinary things. Culture can be grouped into two different kind of categories. You can talk about visible culture and invisible culture, or tangible and intangible. The tangible, I would translate that to say the crafts, the music, the art, the technology. And those are important, but I think the more important are the intangible. And these are values, beliefs, feelings, opinions, perspectives, assumptions.
So culturally relevant pedagogy, one of the primary premises is that teachers take students' everyday lived cultural experiences and make the appropriate linkages between what the students know and do and understand, and come up with examples, comparisons, and contrasts. They make the connections. They are cultural translators. They are cultural bridge builders. I think when we talk about culturally responsive pedagogy, we have to remember that students approach learning not as cultural blank slates. So they bring into the classroom all of those cultural experiences. And so it is very compatible with what we know about good teaching. Culturally responsive pedagogy builds on students' prior knowledge. And in this case, we're talking about prior cultural knowledge, making connections between what is known and what is to be taught and understood.
So part of the argument of culturally responsive teaching is the dilemma has been an incompatibility between the cultural filters that have been used to send instructional messages to students that's coming from the school frame of reference, and when kids from different ethnic backgrounds are trying to learn that, they are trying to receive what we send from school through another set of cultural filters. And if they don't match, then nothing's happening. So cultural responsive teaching then says is that rather than always insisting that the students adapt to the culture of the school needs to adapt and modify some of its sending messages, its sending mechanism.
When we think about what matters most about culture, I think the first thing to remember is that students are not mere representatives of a cultural or ethnic group. And first and foremost, they are individual students who have individual needs and interests, etc. Students who belong to an ethnic group, their attachment and bonds to the group vary, for example, in terms of how long they've been in this country, social class, and their own experiences in their community and neighborhood.
Because if we think about students' culture, we make culture a trait of that individual based on his or her membership in a particular community, conflating race and ethnicity with culture. We don't take race off the table at all, but we're really pulling apart what culture is and making sure we don't conflate it, because if we do, then we make cultural practices a trait of that person's membership in that particular community. And that leads us, of course, to make very easily slip into one size fits all, that my Latino children learn this way, or my African American children need X, right? And so it's making culture a trait of the individual that's been very problematic in the implementation of culturally relevant pedagogy.
Any thoughts? Any thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll start off, and I hope some of you other guys jump in. Big thing that I noticed was prior cultural knowledge. So, for instance, getting to know your students before you even have them in the classroom. You know, maybe asking teachers that they had the year before what information, a little background about them.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a great strategy, a nice little tidbit there. Yes, indeed, indeed. Anything else? Anyone else?
I can jump in.
Yes.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Bailey Calvar. I am from Ithaca College. I am currently student teaching. So one thing that stood out to me was how one of them mentioned that the school needs to adapt to the students and not the students having to adapt to the school, which is, I think, a great point. Because why do the students always need to change? They're constantly making changes. Why can't we as teachers take a step and learn, educate ourselves so that when they come in, they're like, you know what? It does feel like I belong here.
Love it. Love it. Please tell me your name again. How you say your name?
Bailey.
Bailey. Bailey. Okay, Bailey. Thank you, Bailey. Appreciate that. And also Anthony, thank you for sharing as well. Anyone else? Anyone else? Something that stood out from that video, something that was said? I have a couple of things, but I'll wait. Okay. Something that stood out to me was the cultural slate, blank slate, right? They come in with their own culture, and you have, and I tell you, it's like an array. It's like it's like a garden, a whole bunch of different flowers in this garden, and you just see the beauty in every single student. There was a visually impaired physical educator in New York City, retired now, many years ago. But he did something so unique that I just was baffled. Every single student in the school had like a cute nickname. So he would say to the kid, when he hear their voices, he would say, you sound like an apple or a peach, you know, something like that. And the student said, I like peach. And he said, okay, you're peach. And every student had a name, a nickname that was something that was uplifting to that student. That was something that made the student feel unique, special, loved, because that was his way of connecting with his students. And again, we're talking almost a decade ago. He created a culturally responsive, a culturally relevant teaching environment just by connecting with his students, by building those relationships with his students. So everything he did beyond the school, outside of the school, with families, was always embraced, always welcome, always supported, because they saw the value in it, and he made a difference. And it's something that, quite frankly, I was yearning to, like, oh my goodness, this is something that I like, that I would love to take away from that. And I will ask students, you know, you tell me, you know, and then when we do group activities, community building activities, hey, what name do you have? What name would you like to have? And give us the purpose of why you selected that name. And these are little nooks and crannies, little things that I will use when sharing with teachers how to build these communities in their classes. Anything else that stood out to anyone?
Yeah, so Mr. Rago, he actually shared one thing that stood out to me was the importance of the intangible aspects of culture.
Excellent, Mr. Rago. Appreciate that. Indeed. Things that we, the other thing that they say, you see, the tangibles, right? You see, the crafts, the music, the posters, the different things, right? But the intangibles are the values that students bring to the culture. My wife happens to be an ENL, is now called ENL, English as a new language, not ESL as in English as a second language. And she shares all these different experiences that she has with students, and especially embracing their various cultures and various ways of addressing certain things that they may be dealing with in ways that to other people may seem unusual, but again, it's different. It's not unusual, it's just different from how you would do it. It doesn't mean you can't value it. That's the point she brings home all the time. And that's something that I'm always picking her brain, like, hey, I have a student for XYZ country. How should I speak, or how should I share this, or what type of things do you do that will get your student to buy into what you're doing? Again, hooking your student into your lessons, for example, something like that. Okay. So as always, yes, Miss Dr. Manson.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing, because that whole thing of tangible and intangible, really resonates with me, because I'll just give you an example of my own experience. I am a Caucasian female, middle class from Long Island, whose teaching was with the DOE as my experience. For some of you that are familiar with the Brockport area, I student taught in Batavia, and then I taught in Elba, tiny, New York City was a culture shock. And I think the one thing that I wish I had known back then is, I was the minority, and most of the teachers were the minority. There wasn't enough people of color and, different backgrounds and races that were in the schools. It was predominantly white that were the teachers. And if I had to do it all again, I think instead of trying to talk the talk, because we can all say that we're culturally responsive and we care and we do that. And I think we really do, but I think we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And if you're going to be teaching in an area where the culture is different for you, get involved in the community. Go to church, go to synagogue, go to, any kind of community type events. If it's a fair, a street fair or something, a parade, and just kind of immerse yourself, because I would not call myself a Spanish speaker, but I got pretty proficient in physical education, Spanish lingo when I was in there. But you know what? It would have really, it's like immersing yourself in anything. The more it just envelops you, the more that you're going to get out of it. And I really had no clue. I did not know what I did not know.
Right.
And you have to just say that to yourself and, and go out there and learn. And it's same for the other way around. If you are a person of different culture, then I did it as a white female going into a different kind of school. But let's say I was a Hispanic or a Black or brown female going into an all white school. There's going to be things that I might not understand culturally from that. So it goes both ways.
Right. Great point. Yes, indeed. And notice, folks, you heard what Dr. Manson said. Had I known then what I know now. So it speaks to the point I made earlier, that you're in a very good position to do that. Again, the immersing yourself into immersing yourself into the culture of the school that you're teaching is something that I totally agree with that. Yes.
We have another comment in the chat from Mr. Wilcox. He is one of our student delegates from Roberts. He said something that stood out to me was a description of cultures as lenses or filters that stack on top of each other, and how they stack differently for each student.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yes, and you took note of that. I appreciate that. Indeed. And like I said to y'all before, and I want to reiterate something that Dr. Manson said about immersing yourself. When I went over to the guys, my Hasidic Jewish friends, and I said, hey man, what do you do? Why do you say this? I had Asian students. I wanted to know a popular artist from her country because she was very shy, and I wanted to get her pumped up, and get her involved. And she was new. She was new not only to the country, but she was new to my class. And I didn't know what to do. I was a new teacher. And those are little things I did back then. And I said, wow, now I'm a lot more resourceful. I could do more things, but that goes back to the history of where we came from. So absolutely. Thank you again, and thank you for sharing that. And you brought up something that I really appreciated too, Dr. Mance. You talk about going to the place of worship. I think that's special. That's really special because I recall doing my research where I was looking at the intensity rate of African-American girls' involvement, right? And the young lady put down that the METs for church was quite high. And I'm saying, but you're in church. So where you think my mind was at the time? I'm thinking, well, if you're in church, you're supposed to be solemn. She says, no. Not in my church. In my church, we jump in and we praise the Lord. I said, you know what? She's right. Again, culturally sound, right? She knew that she gets involved in her church. And this, if I didn't know that, not said I didn't know, but it said I didn't know she would have applied the level of intensity she was, jumping and singing and praising as part of her outside of school physical activity. Not saying it was mainly movement, but it was related to what I was looking at. I wanted to know, what do you do with your leisure time? And church was one of the things listed on that. And that was something that she noted. I said, you know what, there we go. So you reminded me of that as you were talking about the church, or the religious part, or getting into going to a synagogue and or mosque or what have you. So thank you for that. So professional affiliations, I cannot begin to tell you the benefits of this. When you sit before an administrator to become a professional teacher, meaning you are now in the profession, I cannot begin to tell how beautiful it is to say, according to a recent article I read from, or according to a workshop where I went in where the presenter did, when you can reference these things and it roll off your tongue in such a smooth way, these administrators will be so impressed with you, not only from that angle, but from the fact that you get so much out of it. And I've been attending conferences and workshops since my undergraduate years. I had the honor and the privilege of meeting some of the most dynamic people in our field who were doing this work for years. And to this day, we're friends to this day. So New York State AHPERD is one of them. Clearly, you're here in New York, so there's no excuse. You're here in New York, so New York State AHPERD. Of course, Shape America, right? Another entity, another organization. Here's another one. I'm attending this, the American Educational Research Association, and there is a special interest group, 93, for physical education. And again, applying research to practice. Here I'm attending their annual meeting. I don't know why they call it a meeting, because man, it's almost 20,000 people worldwide, all different academia, right? But we have our group, and I am so proud to be a member of this group, because again, I'm reading articles and meeting the people whose articles I read during my undergrad. Can you imagine that? I'm in the same circle with these people, and I'm picking their brains every step of the way. So I implore you to look at these organizations as well. Start with New York State AHPERD, Shape America. National Strength and Conditioning Association, my esteemed colleague, Anthony Carano, who is the section president of New York City. I joined when I was an undergraduate, and I kind of let it go, but it's all renewed. They have all these different new things that coming up with, and he talks, and by the way, you could just follow him on Instagram. He's amazing. Coach Carano, follow him on Instagram. Great resource, great opportunities for you to learn a lot about fitness and activities to do with your students, especially with your students, those of you doing student teaching. And now, let me tell you why I plugged in Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development. Because of the belief that some administrators and people within the school community may think about health and physical educators. They think that's all we do. Health and fitness, they don't know where, first of all, we're pedagogues, first of all. And I always used to argue with people. I say, you know, not only am I a pedagogue, I am a pre-med student, my friend. I know the human body, I know how movement, I know, so I am a little ahead of you, by the way. You know, I used to make create these arguments with people, but for you to be outside a little, you know, again, another organization that, while it may not be physical education, is still in the educational field. So you can learn a lot from other organizations. And again, when I tell you about building community within the school and having a place within the school, this is another opportunity for you to say, well, as a member of ASCD, some of my administrators say, wait a minute, this young man or this young lady or this person or this scholar, this superstar knows about these organizations that I'm affiliated with. So that's another plug for you as well. So no excuses. Everybody here I know is an active member of New York State AHPERD. So that's already signed and delivered. So we know that one. And the other ones, again, I encourage you to join. And by the way, Mr. Rego said earlier that, or was it Mr. Scabelli, talk about the fee. Did you mention the fee? Yes. Interesting. I always tell students, I said, you want to join now because you're paying a student fee and you're getting the benefits of the professionals. So by the time you become a professional, you want to continue being a member. So that's my plug for you there with regard to professional affiliations. All right, so here's some suggested readings that I will strongly encourage you to take a look at. Zaretta Hammond, as I said to you before, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, amazing book. I strongly encourage you to check that out. Dr. Cherokee Hawley out of California, I was able to listen to him at an event I attended in Ithaca, New York, my brother's keeper, and he was the keynote. Again, he was the one conducting a series of workshops there, and his book, Culturally and Linguistic Responsive Teaching and Learning, Classrooms Practice for Success, Student Success, is an amazing book that brings a lot of the things that were mentioned about the languages, the differences in languages from linguistic elements from their students. Again, Teacher and Child, one of my favorites there that I told you about. I tell you, it's a great read. You're going to enjoy it. And a lot of good tidbits. Teach Like a Pirate. We had the honor at the state level to bring in Mr. Dave Burgess, was a keynote, I believe, at one point, or he did a workshop in 1 year. I missed it because I was not able to attend that year, or I didn't go. I remember what happened, and I was quite upset, but I had the privilege of getting in to speak in New York City, and our section president was able to bring him in, and I was like, whoa, this is the man I miss. But bam, it's a book, Teach Like a Pirate, helps you to hook your students into your lessons, and I mean, amazing book. What Great Teachers Do Differently by Beth and Todd Whitaker is a great read in that it provides opportunities for you to know some of the key things that pedagogues as a whole should be able to know when they go within a school setting, that how to blend in or how to be part of that community. Student agency, all these different things are mentioned in there. So I would strongly encourage you to take a look at that. Another amazing scholar, or two other amazing scholars, are Gloria Ladson Billings, who I had the privilege of listening talk at Teachers College. She did a keynote there one time, and I mean, she just blew me out of the box, learning so much information. Historical, she looked at historical schools in Philadelphia and other areas. That was an eye-opener. And lastly, Django Paris's book, Culturally Sustaining Pedagogies, Teaching and Learning for Justice in a Changing World. Now, these books, I was exposed to them when I attended AERA, and they had, of course, their vendors or their book section, and I was able to delve in there and pick out some of these books that were relevant to what I wanted to learn more about with regard to cultural responsive learning, teaching and learning. Okay, so this is the moment where I get an opportunity to hear other people's voices, where you can at least either put it in the chat, or I would prefer you put it in the chat. If you don't want to come off mute, I would love to hear your voice. And tell us one takeaway from today? One takeaway. And by the way, talking about culturally responsive teaching and learning, it's something that will require an entire day, or meaning as far as a workshop. But this presentation, again, provided an overview, at least to whet your appetite to say, you know what, this is something I need to start looking into as I move forward in my professional career. Any takeaways that we could start with? Anyone, doesn't matter. Mr. Scabelli, if you want to take a look in the chat as well, to do it simultaneously would be great. Yeah, Jared, you want to, go ahead, Scabelli, go.
So yeah, nothing in the chat yet, but I'll start it up. Cultural responsiveness, myself included, a lot of people see it as just race, but after this session, it's obviously more than that. Religion, gender, disability, ENL, people that come from impoverished families, different ethnicities. It's a whole diverse expanages of things and not just one specific.
Awesome.
I really like from the video, kind of how I talked about already, the difference between the tangible and the intangible aspect of culture, but also being able to immerse yourself into these different aspects and really connecting with your students, and how you had on the one slide, making the connections and gaining the trust with not only the students, but also their families. I feel like that's incredibly important.
Right. Excellent.
We had Caitlin right in the chat. I love the idea of finding ways to celebrate cultural differences. I also very much appreciate the literature suggestions. Thank you.
Love it. Keep them coming. I'm listening.
Hi, I'm Beryl. I'm from Ithaca College. I think that my biggest takeaway is that if you're teaching somewhere that is culturally different to what you're used to, it's really important to immerse yourself in the community and just get involved with as much as you can.
Awesome. Yep.
My name's Katie McEntee. I'm also from Ithaca College. I think the biggest thing, I mean, it was already said, but it definitely is going to be useful for me, like naming the certain classes based off like superstars, champions, because
right
at my last student placement, yeah, I was with K through 5th graders, and I kept finding myself saying guys, because I didn't know what else to say. Like, I didn't know y'all, like I'm not from the South, so I didn't know, like, but this will definitely be useful for me in the future.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a great takeaway. Yep. Yep.
Go ahead, Ms. Clements.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
It's a pleasure. Victor, I sprinted across campus at Manhattanville. I knew I'd be half an hour late, but I had to teach in a different area.
Sure.
I think I'm very impressed with how many of you young professionals have such kind hearts.
Yes.
And I think it's something that, unfortunately, earlier generations, we were not exposed to it. We had to learn it through kind of rigorous training. Today, you people are seeing things without having to been told. And you've got great leaders like, Dr. Ramsey is amazing. And Victor, I did sprint to get here today. So,
you got you to work on. I got you.
My dear colleagues, Clancy and my Adelphi, comrade. It is so nice to see how many people are here. And I'm delighted that, Caitlin's here from Manhattanville and is enjoying this. We'll talk about it. I hope. One thing I want to know is this will be recorded, how long it'll be, so it could be shared maybe in a class with other people and things like that. But I'll be quiet now.
Yeah, no, your contribution is great.
I can answer that, Dr. Clements.
Thank
It is recorded and it will be put up on YouTube, and it will be available to whoever wants to access it.
Right.
And it doesn't, I don't believe it comes down. And if it does come down, we can always put it up again. Like if you can't find it or something.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Well stated there, Dr. Clemens. And yeah, we had to learn as we went along back then, you know, and I'm 33 years in a DOE and, you know, 19 at York. It was a struggle. So I learned as I came along. I made a lot of missteps. So you are in a great space, and that you have us. You can look up to us, could call us, reach out, and feel free. Dee Howell and Jamie Wheeler in that order.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Victor. First, my name is Deron Howell. I'm from Adelphi University. I just want to thank you because tonight, after listening to everything and listening to everything you said, I learned a lot, and I could definitely use what you basically stated tonight in the classroom. Because currently, I'm doing my internship at a K-5 middle school in Brooklyn at Brooklyn Brownstone, and I could see the cultural diversity in that school, and then having to deal with a student that has a disability in the gym class with the regular students is definitely a lot. I see for the gym teacher that he has to do a lot of work with paying attention to him plus the other students.
Right. That's
I took
right.
I took everything you said, and wrote down everything, and I'm definitely going to use that in my future plans as a PE teacher.
Yep. And I just want you to know I'm an extension of Adelphi University and Manhattanville and Manhattan College and Ithaca. So I know the school you're in, so I'm going to stop in and check you out, man. I know that school very well. I know the principal too.
Okay.
All right. That's right. So I stopped by and say hello to you, man. I got you, man. And you're in good hands. As a physical educator, I wish you the very best, man. And that's why I love to hear this, man. And don't be, again, education is a quest, always learning. So don't hesitate to reach out. All right. Mr. Wheeler.
All right. Good evening. Hey, I just want to say that I'm not your typical college student. I'm 46, spent 27 years in the military, just retired, trying to transition into the physical education world. And I just want for those young people out there to understand the importance of applying the EDI strategies when you're teaching, not just as a teacher, but as you're trying to gain that trust to those students and stuff like that. When I got out, I was an E8. I had the best opportunity I could get was to be able to train the newly high school graduated kids into the military, connect with them, try to find out the best ways to get them to buy into our strategies, if you would. And the best way for me to do that was to kind of relate to them. It culturally was the most, especially in the military branch, you get so many cultures out there. You're exposed to that, and being able to talk their language, do what they do a little bit, let them teach you something. You really build that trust, and you end up saving the lives, not necessarily just teaching them, but you can end up saving their lives a little bit. And it's just, when you use those EDIs to build that trust, it's just much more rewarding than just doing the job of teaching, if you would. So it was great information. I appreciate it all.
Yeah. But Jamie, let me first start by saying thank you for your service as a veteran myself. I can
thank you. You too.
Yeah, I can totally agree with you on that. And some of those strategies that I came as far as leadership and building community and learning, because I was in the military with white guys from Tennessee who told me I've seen them on TV, but I never interacted with a black person until I came in the Army. And I learned about Randy Travis, Digging Up Bones. That was my very first song. I remember it vividly. And he went back listening to Bob Marley and reggae. And from my other guys from the other places went back listening to reggae. And his mother like, where did you learn this music? With my friends from the Army. So we built that community. So I use all these little strategies, bringing it back. So to your credit, I just want to say it's a plus. You are like, you made up with the years in the military and those skills and bring it into your teaching. So you got it good. You got it going on, man. It's a great thing, man. So I commend you on that. So yes,
thank you.
Absolutely. I learned from guys from the Philippines. I had guys from, I'm preaching to you, but everybody, man. And I learned so much, man. I learned so much from people, man. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yes.
I think that's our general goal is that's why we do what we do, is because we want to help so many people. And even if it's just getting into, I used to have leaders that would say, do intrusive leadership, but I changed that before I left, and I called it engaging leadership, where we can do engaging teaching, so that we can reach through to those students that we see are struggling, maybe not just with school, but something outside of the school, within their family, within their own communities and stuff like that.
That's
I
right.
think
Excellent.
That's more powerful than anything.
Indeed.
So.
And again, connecting, building relationship. And when you get in that classroom, guess what? Classroom management minimal, because they can relate to you. So you're good, you know. It's like the extended uncle, you know. So you're good. That's right. Excellent. All right. I saw some things in the chat. Was that a question or a comment, Mr. Scabelli?
Yeah, so I'll touch on that. So we had one comment here from Miss Emily Clark. She commented on something I said about being Catholic and saying Merry Christmas. She said, if you say that to a kid who doesn't celebrate Christmas, then they may not feel as included as a whole student. Another thing we had was from Mr. Bertolotti, another student delegate. I love hearing about how you make sure to actively learn about the differences allow in your students' cultures and then adapting your approach with them.
That's right.
Good.
Yeah, I want to share something real briefly, because I did promise you guys, by guys I'm meaning Scabelli and the president-elect, and earlier about the document I want to share about community building. So I just want to share this real quick. Active learning in small community. I just want to share this. So this document, the ideas here came from the Association for College and University Professors, educators rather, AQ. And I was sharing with Dr. Manson earlier that when we put students in teams to do things, we always say, okay, one of you will be the voice, the speaker, the other one would be the recorder, you know, what have you. We give them roles and then we have them figured out. Here, I believe at any grade level, you could come up with a different name for each one of these. And I'm just going to read them off quickly to not read the entire thing. So the proponent lists, supports, points of agreement. You could change the proponent to another term, right? The critic lists, supports, points of disagreement, which is a good thing, right? If you try and do a troubleshooting activity, a fitness activity, or a health activity, health lesson. The illustrator, identify most relevant and persuasive examples. The skeptic prepares substantive, challenging questions, potentially the questions that the teacher may have, potentially the questions that his classmates may have, right? The summarizer recaps the key points, crafts conclusion. Leader/reporter coordinates, summarizes, and serves as time manager. Again, this is an example, and I will share this down. I did send it to you, Mr. Scabelli, and if I did not, please know that I will send it to you. And I think it's a great way, and again, could be used to build communities within the health and the physical education class. So you could come up with a title for each one, or have the kids talk about it. Your students, you know, what title would you ask someone who may is the person who's organizing this team, you know, or, you know, who's will be the captain. That everybody may, again, you welcome everyone to have a role within that community. And I love the term community rather than breakout rooms and groups. You know, I love community. When I teach my students at York, I say, when you go into your small communities, and we do lots of learning walks, I said, when you go into your small communities, come back and share with a larger community, you know. So I'm already embedding that. And they don't say, oh, in my group, they say my community. So immediately you already started to inculcate these terms into your students' minds and say, you know, we're part of a community. You know, we hear the word team all the time, but, you know, community to me, if you want to build that culturally responsive learning environment, is a better, I think it's a nice approach. Any other comment or question?
I have something really quick.
Yes, Bailey.
Hi. So I just want to bring up a point for phys ed that a lot of teachers who I've observed, when they're doing cultural stuff, they do it for maybe the Olympic section where they do all the countries. But keep in mind that you doing one unit that I'm learning here isn't going to cover you all for cultural responsibility. That's just one part in this your whole unit.
It's ongoing. Yep.
Exactly. So you have to be able to adapt all your lessons to always constantly being including everything and being aware. So that's something I learned.
Absolutely. Great point. So prime example in the openphys.org, by the way, if you don't subscribe, it's free. Openphys.org. I know your higher ed faculty are aware of it. Some of you are already aware. Openphys.org, free. In there, there is an activity that addresses, that do miming, you know, like everybody may recall the Harlem Globetrotters. So historically speaking, the Harlem Globetrotters paid homage to the Negro, the baseball Negro League, that league, because they weren't able to either touch or play with their white opponents' mittens and bats. They weren't able to touch, so they had to, you know, mimic the throwing of a ball, the catching of a ball, the batting of a ball. So that activity talks about the historical implication of how they came about doing miming and things in different sports, and how the Harlem Globetrotter paid homage to these athletes, phenomenal athletes. Hence, to Bailey's point, it's something that you can start embedding, because oftentimes you ask students about, and I'll give you an example of one that we all know about, basketball. When you mention the word basketball, everybody say James Naismith. Well, by the way, for the record, if you have never been there, go to Bowling Green, get out by the Bowling Green station. There's a Native American museum. And in there, I had the privilege of going with my son's school on a tour where they showed you the actual original stuff, what was considered a basketball made with rubber. It was unbelievable, the actual history of where this came from. So we talk about Naismith, and yes, let's give him credit. He did his thing. But when we're talking about historical implications, we're talking about indigenous people and some of the contributions that they made. This is another example, to Bailey's point, to make this something that is ongoing, not just wait for, say, Black History Month or Women's Month. We have to celebrate everyone throughout the year. And this is why you have to be strategic in your planning and keep in mind, say, is this going to be a long-standing lesson that I can come back and say, by the way, y'all remember in January when we did this and this? So this is an example of what I was talking about. So Bailey, great point. Two more comments. Two more comments. Flor, is that Flor? I'm sorry, I thought you took off your thing. Is that Flor? I'm sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Do my last name?
Is that Flor?
It's Flor, yes.
Flor, okay.
Yep, yep.
Now, you have to excuse me as a Panamanian. I'm rolling my tongue because it's flower in Spanish, so I was rolling. So I thank you for correcting me. Flor.
I hear that a lot. Yeah, people often ask me if I'm Latin or I'm not, but
okay. I thought you had a question.
Of the language.
Oh, got it. I thought you had a question. I'm sorry.
No, I just said, I appreciate all of your ideas for celebrating differences. I don't come from a very culturally diverse area, but like we said, we never know where we may end up.
That's right.
I agree. I think it's incredibly valuable to be exposed to diversity. So that, and also I really appreciate the literature suggestions that you shared.
Sure.
I love to read, and it's just such great information. So thank you.
I commend you, and I commend you, and I appreciate what you said, because you may land somewhere and you already will be equipped. And by the way, the strategies that I shared, there was only a couple of those. There's a lot more stuff that we could have talked about and expand upon. So I don't want to just limit you to what I shared tonight, which you'll get on this presentation, but there's a lot more, and I want to keep the ball rolling. To Bailey's point, we don't want to make this a one-off, right? So if anybody come across something, you share it with someone. That's why the information is more powerful when we share it. So this is why I think it's great. So I have 2 minutes left, and all I have to say is that I was honored to be here with you today and sharing this moment with you. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you, my amazing higher ed faculty for sharing with these amazing future professionals. And again, people, I mentor newly inducted teachers, and I tell you, my brother here from my Pan American friend can tell you, when we spoke to those teachers, man, they were sharp, man, and they had it going on. So I tell you, you are it, and we're here for you, and we trust that you're going to do very well, and thank you for making this part of your professional preparation as you move forward. We promise you, you're going to get way better than you will be better than many people as they come into the school. You might be able to teach some classroom teachers how to deal with cultural responsiveness. So you are in the right. Mr. Scabelli.
So before I thank Victor, I want to thank all of you for participating, whether it was going off mute and talking to Victor and talking to us and us listening and thinking about your point of views, or like I said, just writing in the chat. And we had a very diverse crowd today.
Yes, we did.
Obviously, Mr. Wheeler, 46, it's never too late to start your career. I'm only 20 years old. Miss Flora over there, she said she didn't come from a really diverse background, and that's okay, because by attending this session tonight, you put a couple more things in your toolbox.
Yep.
So overall, of course, Dr. Ramsey, thank you as well.
And did I tell Miss Flora that she could come and work in New York City? Oh, I didn't say, she didn't. Was she hearing? Did she hear that?
I've been thinking about it. I'm not gonna
thinking about it.
It is a pretty big commute for me, but I would love to come work with a fellow Manhattanville alumni.
Boom, there you go. And I'm a Manhattan. I'm a Manhattan College. I'm a Jasper.
Oh, Manhattan College.
I'm a Manhattan College. But Manhattanville, kind of like the same.
Hey, we're all one big family.
But by the way, they do Manhattan College do some amazing work with New York City teachers. They are, name it. Back then it was rare to have, but they are in there, man. The students are on point. Manhattan College sent me names of students. I already screened them. They're sharp. At Delphi, I have to admit, whenever they put a student out there, I hardly even say, when screening, what borough you want to teach and what grade band, because content-wise, they make me look like, like I need to go back to the drawing board. They are on point, man. This awesome.
Partial. I think I have the best with Dr. Clemens.
There you go. It's all good. Canisius is almost in Canada, but we welcome them in New York.
Well, I'm going to say that Miss Floor knows how to work the micro politics of grading. That's for sure. And then,
wow.
And then Anthony mentioning as well that he's only 20 plus years of age, and Jamie's only 46, and I'm only 49. So I can tell you that the word, I guess, only is the operative part of that. That's that phrase. So anyway.
Yeah. Here's a thing that resonated with me yesterday. I had my final midterm with my students, and they were really nervous. And this is what this tidbit is. They were really nervous. I put on like this meditation tune to pipe through, the classroom. But before they began, I said, over the years, I used to say test, and I say exam, then I say assessment. I said, although I'm measuring some learning here, I would like to call it deep thinking fun time. And they're like, try to break down the ice a little bit, but talking about social emotional learning. So these are little things that I thought about as
deep thoughts. Watch Saturday Night Live, call it that, something like that. Yeah.
That's right. All right. So again, thank you. And I look forward.
Thank you, Victor.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending. If you feel free to ask Victor anything before hopping off. My student delegates, please stay on 2 or 3 minutes, quick chat. Otherwise, thank you for coming, for those who are going to be heading out. And we hope to see you at the next one on April 21st.